I did not expect that. Yesterday, StatsCan released the inflation numbers for April, and it came in at 2.7%, which is lower than it was in March and even lower than it was in February. So that took me and a lot of other people by surprise because we thought certainly if it wouldn't stay at the same rate as it was in March at 2.9%, it would have gone up to 3% simply because of gasoline prices, which, as you recall, went up month over month. Actually, with the carbon tax coming in April 1st, they jumped up and had a lot of us thinking, though, that's certainly going to bring inflation back up. But it is what it is. So I'll dive into that today. And if you're holding your breath for interest rates to come down as a result of inflation coming down, then keep watching. I'll dive into that, as I said. Also, we'll take a look at the latest stats in the GTA and take your questions, as always, right here, right now on Live at Lunch. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful, sunny Wednesday afternoon. So right off the top, inflation comes in at 2.7%, again, catching a lot of people by surprise. We thought certainly it would go up because of the carbon tax. That came in April 1st, which turned out not to be an April Fool's joke. And, that is having a lot of people now talking about interest rates being cut. The odds of an interest rate cut next month. Bank of Canada is supposed to make an announcement on June the 5th. The odds are about 50-50 for an interest rate cut. Some are still holding the line, saying no, it's not enough for Bank of Canada. Others are saying yes, it is. Some of the top economists in Canada, in fact, are predicting a rate cut. People from CIBC, Manulife, Desjardins, places like that are saying, yes, it's time, and the Bank of Canada has enough to cut the rates. But others are still doubtful about that. If you ask me personally, I like to cheer for the underdog. So if I had to put money on it, I would say yes, there will be a rate cut in June, simply because the Bank of Canada, since they started raising interest rates, have been saying they want inflation to get back to the target range of between 1% and 3%. They've talked about the 2% target rate, but they keep talking about a range as well, so between 1% and 3%. And now the inflation rate is within that range, and it's been in that range for 4 consecutive months. So I think that's enough time for the Bank of Canada to know this is not a blip, and that inflation is in fact steadily coming down. It is a little bit sticky, but they predicted that it would be sticky, so it's not a surprise there. So it's within their range. It's been in that range for 4 consecutive months. But not only that, because it's not just about inflation, Bank of Canada looks at a few other factors as well. They look at unemployment, and unemployment has been up for the last couple months as well. It's been 6.1%, and that's the highest it's been since the pandemic, since about I think January 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So they look at unemployment. They want people to lose their jobs, and that's happening right now. They're also looking at GDP, and GDP is slightly up month over month, but that's mainly due to the population increase because of immigration. The population has gone up as well month over month, increasing the overall GDP. But if you break it down into GDP per capita, per person, it's actually down. So all the numbers and all the signs are there for the Bank of Canada to make a decision. Whether or not they will is beyond me. I don't know. I don't have any inside info, but if I was a betting person, then I would say, you know what, probably. But it won't be more than a quarter point, right? So maybe 25 basis points, a quarter point rate cut in June. June the 5th is the announcement. So I will certainly have that for you, regardless of which way it goes. The next announcement after that is July 24th. So that's about 6 weeks after that. So if they don't cut on June the 5th, they will most certainly cut, in my opinion, on July 24th. So look for rate cuts over the summer. Hopefully we'll finally get there. And again, the other reason why I think that there will be a rate cut is because um, when you I talked about gasoline earlier. So when you remove the gasoline price from the 2.7% overall rate, it comes down to actually 2.5%. So the Bank of Canada knows, that okay, the carbon tax went in there, boosted gasoline prices up, and that's kind of keeping inflation up even higher because everything else has come down. Food has come down, services have come down, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing that's keeping inflation up is shelter costs. And shelter costs are directly influenced by the interest rate. Okay, so hopefully Bank of Canada will see this, and by not cutting rates, they're actually keeping inflation up as well, because shelter costs account for maybe 28 or 29% of the overall inflation rate. So it only makes sense that, if you cut the if you cut the interest rate, then inflation will come down even more. So thank you for joining me, everyone, here. I like to keep this an interactive show. So if you do have any questions or comments, by all means, please post them here and I will answer them while I'm on the air. And if you're watching this on the replay, by all means, you can still ask your questions and I will get to them as soon as possible. But if you're here live, by all means, ask your questions. As I said, I'd like to keep this as an interactive show. So we have shelter costs keeping inflation up. We've got gasoline keeping inflation up. Everything else is coming down. And speaking of shelter costs, I want to talk about rents for a little bit. Rent prices have gone up year over year all across the board. Some people are thinking that rents have actually come down in Ontario, but that's not the case. Ontario has the lowest increase in rent prices year over year. So that may have people thinking they've actually come down when in fact they haven't. They just haven't gone up as much as they have before. Where they've gone up the most is places like Alberta. They've gone up about 16% in Alberta compared to about 5% in Ontario. And that's, again, it's not only due to interest rates, but it's due to people flocking over there, migrating from other provinces like Ontario, like BC, where the rent is a little more affordable than it is over here. And there's a lot of people buying real estate out there. There's a lot of people renting out there. It's a lower cost of living. Let's face it. And that's driving the rents up for people in Alberta, which is not good for the people who have lived in Alberta before. So they're the only ones complaining, that all these people from Ontario and BC are coming here and increasing our cost of living, our rent. What can you do? So, so that's that. I wanted to talk about that. And also, I want to take a look at the latest stats, which came out, not came out actually. So I'm going to look at the first 3 weeks of May. So today's the 22nd of May. I'm going to look at May 1st to 21st, because a lot of the transactions happen in the evening, so I'm not going to include today in these stats, and compare these 3 weeks of May to the first 3 weeks of April and see where we're at. Because April was a slow month, traditionally speaking, say that 3 times fast. Because typically we're supposed to be in the spring market right now. Activity is supposed to go up from March to April to May, and May is supposed to hit a peak. But we're not seeing that. So spoiler alert, the numbers aren't there for May, at least in the first 3 weeks. As we look at April, supply is up, and that's to be expected. So supply went up about 12% in Toronto and about 8% in Peel Region. And Peel Region includes Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. But sales, it's just not happening. It's pretty flat. So in Toronto, it's gone up a little bit, maybe 1%, but I'm going to call it flat because there was 1,415 sales in the first 3 weeks of April versus 1,431 sales in the first 3 weeks of May. So to me, that's pretty flat. But in Peel Region, it actually came down about 10%. So there was 637 sales in first 3 weeks of April. In Toronto, in Peel region, and that has come down to 573 sales in the first 3 weeks of May. So where the rest of the month go, I don't think it's going to take off and eclipse the April numbers. I think a lot of people are on the fence and they're waiting for these interest rates to come down. So we may see a difference in June. So if in fact I am correct and interest rates do start coming down in June, we may see people jump off the fence and start getting into the market, because I think a lot of people are just waiting for that to happen. Sellers, for example, will wait for interest rates to fall because they know that as soon as that happens, that all these buyers are going to jump into the market now, and that's going to push prices upwards. So it makes sense for sellers to wait. It kind of makes sense for buyers to wait because have a lower interest rate, then you're going to have a lower monthly payment. However, the only risk there is if the sellers are correct and all these people jump into the market, driving prices upwards, any money that you're going to save on the interest rate is just going to be paid out in the cost of the house itself. So it's like a catch-22. But I don't expect a huge price increase in June, even if people do flock into the market, because we're already high and we're already at a very unaffordable mark for home prices. So I don't expect prices to take off too much, even if interest rates do come down. And let's face it, a quarter point is not going to make that much difference. Anyway, maybe by the end of the summer, after a couple more rate cuts, then you'll see more people jumping in and more and prices going up. But again, whatever happens, I will keep you posted. And if you have any questions, by all means, ask them here. Or if it's a more personal question, you can send me a DM and I'm happy to answer it. So getting back to the stats. It's no surprise that the sales have come down because both showings and offers have come down. We saw about a 2% drop in showings in Toronto and about a 4% drop in showings in Peel region, and about a 5% drop in offers in Toronto and a 13% drop in offers in Peel region. So fewer people are willing to pull the trigger on these places. Again, in my opinion, they're all waiting for something to happen with interest rates before they make that commitment and buy a house or a condo. Days on market hasn't changed very much. It's about half a day less for Toronto and almost a full day less for Peel region. So there you have it in a nutshell. This is not the spring market that we were expecting. Certainly not a traditional spring market. Things are pretty slow. People are on the fence and waiting. So, but before I let you go, I want to make an announcement. So last year around this time, if you remember, I got together with, I challenged really Vince Gaetano and the Owl Mortgage team to a charity softball game. And we did it to raise money for the homeless. So it's a very good cause. It was a great event. We raised a bunch of money for the homeless, and not only money, but clothing, food, all kinds of things that they're looking for. And it's happening again this year, so I'm very excited about it. It's happening on Saturday, June the 15th, and it's going to be in the morning in Mississauga, and we're looking for players. We're looking for people to participate. You don't have to be an all-star or anything like that, but I do want to put a team together and take down Vince and his team. They beat us last year. They humiliated us last year. So the score was I don't remember what the score was. But Vince, we're coming for you on June the 15th. And if you want to participate, by all means, send me a DM or call me, text me, email me, whatever you want. If you want to play, or even if you just want to come out and watch, by all means, we need the fans and we need the donations. So please, if nothing else, let's do this for the homeless in Toronto, and we call it Swinging for Shelter. So it's going to be a great event. I'm going to have more details on this over the next couple of weeks on my lives, and I'll be sending out some emails as well. So very much looking forward to it, and I hope you can join me. For now, take it easy, enjoy this beautiful weather, and I'll see you next week.